is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
United will never be defeated.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
The people
United will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people.
To get our sound system set up.
So right now we can just use the people's mic.
So right now we can just use the people's mic.
At the moment,
At the moment,
there might be some performers
there might be some performers
in our crowd.
in our crowd.
I would invite anyone
I would invite anyone
to come out and perform a short piece.
to come out and perform a short piece.
Open mic.
Open mic.
Our friend Bert
Our friend Bert
has some poetry.
has some poetry
He'd like to share with us.
he would like to share with us.
And we also have a song coming forward.
And we also have a song coming forward.
So gather around.
So gather around,
Make sure it's nice and close.
make sure it's nice and close,
And we can get some performances.
and we can get some performance.
Check. Okay, well, I guess we got one mic.
All right.
So I'm going to start with the poem. And if I wish we could keep doing the people's mic because that thing was awesome.
That thing was awesome.
All right, so what I like to do when in the poetry collective that I'm a part of, what we like to do is to know that everybody's paying attention. We all put our fists up, and when I count down from 3, I want to hear everybody say breathe. 3, 2, 1,
Breathe.
I'm seeing how the game is played. A snake will eat his own ass to connect the chain. Each link off our wrist is on our brain, because everything is consumer based. Freemasonries graduate to become Illuminati. The black market rules the world, you can ask John Gotti, because everything is consumer based. It's hard to conserve when they say spending. It's the only way they see this recession ending. Meanwhile, the household debt is breaking the back of a fetus in the nutsack of some kid who ain't been born yet. So they say save. Then hire psychologists to study our ways. The corporation will decide what you wear today, because everything is consumer based. Who do they ask when they pass bylaws? Putting restrictions on products I spent good money for. I spent too much time and energy putting myself in debt only to have things I can't afford yet, because everything is consumer based. Mommy, you got makeup on at such a young age. Shallow eyes and a drawn on face. A white girl who fake and bakes, a black girl who bleaches, only to find her features ugly when sitting next to Beyonce. Because everything is consumer based. Selling me on the latest video games, or, dog, did you see my new MJs? Understand, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. So buy into me. But you'll never own a part of my dynasty. I got a God complex, that's what concentrated wealth has given me. So everybody sing with me. H to the is O, B to the is A. Is it Jay-Z, Jehovah, Jesus? Sounds strange, but everything is consumer based. So supply and demand, well I demand we wage war. Because I don't want pesticides in my food no more. And even though I have the power, I set my sword to lay, neglecting my ability to make real change. Even though I know there are 2 elections that take place, I refuse to vote with my dollars, but put an X by the name of a man who could care less where some kids play, or even take the time to explain why their education is in decay. Why we keep funding wars and weapons trade, but when I vote with my dollars, that's when they get afraid. Because they know, like I know, and you now know, everything is consumer-based. Yeah.
Some drums out here, right? There's some drums? Okay, so I'm going to need some help with some drums. The words to this song, there's 4 lines. Let it begin with each step we take. Let it begin with each change we make. Let it begin with each chain we break. And let it begin every time we awake.
Amen.
Okay, so here's how it goes. Let it begin with each step we take, and let it begin with each change we make. Let it begin with each chain we break, and let it begin every time we awake. Let it begin with each step we take, and let it begin with each change we make. Let it begin with each chain we break, and let it begin every time we awake. Let it begin with each step we take, and let it begin with each change we make. Let it begin with each chain we break. Let it begin every time we awake. Let it begin with each step we take, and let it begin with each change we make. Let it begin with each chain we break. Let it begin every time we awake. Let it begin with each change we make, and let it begin with each step we take, and let it begin with every change we break. Let it begin with each time we awake. Let it begin.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Can you guys hear me? We have another lineup of fantastic speakers here. I'd like to welcome Michael Kalmanovich. Michael is the owner. Robin Hood. Robin Hood owns the Earth's General Store. He is a tireless activist and cornerstone of Edmonton's progressive community. He is part of the 99% and Occupy Edmonton. Please welcome Michael.
That's a good walk down from Sherwood Forest. As Chelsea mentioned, that's the other Sherwood Forest. The government of Canada is actively working to not allow other governments in the world to implement a financial transaction tax, otherwise known as the Robin Hood tax. So we need to let them know by doing things like this, and also letting them know by phoning them, writing to them, and whatever way you can get into their office and let them know, because most of the people around here are conservatives. Get into their offices and let them know that you would like to see this implemented. Amen. Not that they'll listen to you, but it's our democratic right, and I think that's important to us to exercise that.
Amen. Yeah.
Why should we have an FTT or Robin Hood tax? The market has become much more speculative in nature. 30 years ago, 5% of the investment in the market was speculative, and now it's about 90%. The money just gets turned around in this thing that doesn't actually produce anything except more money and more possible, downturns in the economy, and money for the rich so they can get richer. Yeah, thank you.
Double boom.
Double shame. This speculative nature makes the market much more imbalanced and subject to fluctuation, as we have seen in 2008 and will likely see shortly. The FTT will reduce some of the speculation, thus bringing more stability in the world. As you heard that pantomime, if we put that 0.5% of tax on them, they might speculate less. That's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. Not a bad thing, it's a good thing. How much is the Robin Hood tax movement asking for? The original movement was asking for 1/20th. I want you to understand that 1/20th of 1%. and others are now asking for 1%. Hey, I don't mind asking for 1%.
Amen. 1%.
How much is 1/20th of 1%? Well, you know, when I was at the store today, I decided to figure that out. So what I did was I took a $20, I mean a $5. It's not a 20, it's a 5. That's the first trick. You get to do those kinds of tricks. Give me a 20, I'll give you a 5. So right below it says Canada. Well, what do you think 1/20th of 1% is represented on this surface area of this $5 bill?
The Owens. It's a dollar in the Queen's arse. It's a penny.
The Queen isn't on the money anymore. You royalist, you.
Robin Hood.
No. You see the word Canada up there, and you see 100 and 5. The little dot in between represents 1/20th of 1%. That's actually a little bit smaller than that, but just to give you an idea. So they get all of this area, and we would get the Robin Hood tax would get that little dot. I don't think we're asking for too much.
No.
Are we? No. We're not asking for us. We're asking it for everybody else.
Amen.
You know, to make the world a better place.
Amen.
Yeah.
Sure. Can I talk with you afterwards? Can I talk with you after, please? Thank you. Yes, I realize that. I am sometimes told that I'm naive. I thought that all taxes were Robin Hood taxes. That we collect, the government collects taxes and they do some good with it. That they spend it on things like infrastructure and healthcare, and yeah, unfortunately they spend it on military as well. But things that I as an individual can't make too much of a difference in the world. But collectively we can. We're doing something collectively here, but we contribute our taxes to the government and they're supposed to do something good with it. And what we're doing is that we're saying you need to start doing these kinds of things in the world. Has anybody heard about the trickle-down effect? I know somebody mentioned in the other space earlier.
Oh,
Yeah, crumbs.
So good,
Or trickle down. I feel wet. So if the corporations do well in the world, the idea is that they will share their good fortune with everybody else around them. They'll give more money to their employees, spend money in the local economy and things like that. But what do we find now? They're putting their corporations offshore. They're actually giving more money at the top end and less money at the bottom end. And I think they need a little bit of help to release some of that money, to change the tax laws that favor the rich and don't do very good for the rest of us.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Pensioners.
Amen.
Yes. I'm somewhat pleased by the initiative of the Robin Hood tax. This is, as far as I know it, the first time that there is a national call to initiate a tax from the people. Taxes start from the top down by government flags, corporations that said we need to change tax laws and everything. This is the first time that it's a public, a citizen-based call for a tax. Tax increases are usually because governments can't control their spending or are not paying enough to taxing enough to pool enough money, but usually both. This produces a shortfall and makes governments hungry for support and finances, and they usually go to somewhere else for their support and finances. They go to support for their cronies in corporations, and it makes them vulnerable for manipulation. So I suggest let's do a little bit of our own manipulation. I think it is a Robin Hood tax time. What time is it? I think so. So be part of the merry people. Be a Robin Hood tax advocate. Thank you.
80% of American corporations worth more than $100 million pay no taxes.
Just some community announcements. So in our program here, one thing is that if people are smoking, just try to not smoke in the crowd. You know, there's different health issues here. And another thing is that I'm pleased to say that at the end of our program, which is a couple more speakers and performers, we will have sort of an open mic. So let's get through our speakers, and we're going to have sort of community announcements. Try to keep it, within a 2-minute window, and let's hear back from all of you guys. So thank you.
Yes, and with that public announcement done, I'd like to bring out our next speaker. Our next speaker is Paula Kerman. Paula Kerman is a local media activist and songwriter. She has been involved in countless rallies and events over the past few years as an organizer, event documenter, and musician. She is one of the 99%. Can we please make some noise for Paula Kerman?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm doing something a little bit different today. When I was invited to take part in the program today, I decided to write a song last night, which is why I brought a cheat sheet with me. And I know that there are some other drummers out there in the crowd as well, so feel free to join in. Am I on? Am I on? Okay, can you hear me in the back?
It's quiet.
Can you hear it? Okay, that's better. All right. As I was explaining, when I was invited to take part in today's event, I decided to do something a little bit different, and I wrote a song last night, which is why I have my cheat sheet here. I really appreciate it if some of the other drummers in the crowd also joined along with me as well. Gather close and raise your voice. We're here to make a stand.
Amen.
We won't be silenced, won't be ignored. For justice we demand.
Amen.
A world where all have what they need to live a decent life.
Yes.
Food and shelter for everyone. No poverty or strife.
Amen.
But there is a gap between rich and poor that's growing day by day. Some have too much while others starve, and that is why we say our economy needs to change, or else things will get worse. Those in power have a choice to be a blessing or a curse. Those who have wealth and privilege control all of the rest. So listen up, the time has come to answer for this mess. We won't go away, it's up to you, whatever happens next. We've had enough, that's why we're here, our future to protect. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll just be like this. So, I have another speaker coming up. Oh, and I'm terrible with last names, but I got a bad last name too, so that's solidarity. His name's Bob McKeon. Bob McKeon. And the brief bio here, Bob is a longtime community activist for progressive change, involved in church and community social justice groups in Edmonton for over 30 years. He is the social justice officer for the Edmonton Archdiocese. Give it up for Bob.
My name is Bob McKeon, and I'm representing the Office for Social Justice of the Catholic Archdiocese of Edmonton. It's a privilege to be here and to be able to speak a voice for social justice and respect for human dignity. Amen. This past week, the Vatican Justice and Peace Council published a statement reforming international financial and monetary systems. The statement addressed many of the issues that we're trying to address here today. Increased inequality within countries and between countries. Amen. The human suffering from the effects of the economic crisis in countries like Canada, and especially overseas, where we have billions of people lacking the very basics for food, water, and shelter. Amen. And the absence of ethics in our financial and monetary systems. Amen. Amen. The concerns raised in the Vatican Note this week are rooted in the official Catholic social teaching, as articulated by Pope Benedict. He boldly insists that love, a very powerful word, not only be present in our human relationships, but be embedded in our national and international economic systems. He uses strong ethical words that are familiar to many of us here. Words like solidarity, respect for human dignity, respect for human workers, a living wage, common good, environmental responsibility, and a priority concern for the poor and those on the margins. And the importance of everyone being able to participate in the economic and political decisions that so much affect our lives. He sees the roots of our present global crisis as primarily moral, and insists that the economy needs ethics, especially a people-centered ethic. The Vatican Note this week proposes to people around the world that we consider an international tax at a fair rate on financial transactions. A tax that could promote global sustainable development and advance the principles of social justice and solidarity. Amen. We are called to remember the revolutionary power of a forward-looking imagination that can look at the possibilities already present and can guide us toward a new future. Today here at Occupy Edmonton, here and at other gatherings around the world, we need to be clear and articulate about what we're saying no to. But even more, we need to dare to imagine a future with possibilities of what we want to say yes to. A world more just, a world more truly respectful of the common good that affects all people. Amen. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of our rally today.
One more time, a round of applause, please, for Bob. I'm not too fond of this mic stand. Oh. Good, normal one. I like that. I don't got too many parts. All right. Sorry for the delay. Let's introduce our next speaker, Elizabeth Ballerman. Elizabeth Ballerman is the president of the Health Scientists Association of Alberta. She is a tireless advocate for public health care. And I was going to read the rest, but it sounds more like a dating line thing. I'll do it anyway. She loves gardening, and she has run 5 marathons.
Good afternoon. All right, what a gorgeous afternoon we've got here. Thank you very much. And first of all, let's recognize that we are standing on the traditional lands of the Treaty 6 Aboriginal First Nations, and thank them for... The Health Sciences Association of of Alberta is a union that represents about 21,000 health professionals, and we are the members of the National Union of Public and General Employees, which represents 350,000 workers in the public sector. Last year at our national convention, we unanimously passed a resolution supporting the Robin Hood tax. So, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Our national union has also been waging a campaign called All Together Now for over a year in support of public services and fair taxation. We know that the gap between the rich and poor is growing. Just 2 days ago, I heard a statistic that said in the last 3 decades in the U.S., the lowest slice of the society, and the lowest income slice of the society in the United States, got income, inflation-adjusted terms, in 30 years, 18% increase. Don't spend it all in one place. The middle class increased their wages, inflation-adjusted, by 40%. You might say that's not too bad if you started off at a reasonable place. And the top 1%, 275%. We have a situation today where the lowest income slice in this country pays a higher tax rate in total than the richest people. The poorest pay the highest taxes. That has to change. And the Robin Hood tax at 0.05%, that's a nickel out of a $100 bill, is another way of putting that, to curb the speculative trades that have cost millions of people their homes, that have cost millions of people their jobs, and that are costing lives around the world. That tax is something that we need, and we need our governments to support that tax. And to this day, they have not yet even thought about it, because all they can think about is cutting corporate taxes. Shame. The government's cuts in corporate taxes from 2006 to 2012 will bring our corporate taxes to the lowest in the OECD world, and will cost us $220 billion just in this country. Imagine what we could do for Head Start programs, for housing for the homeless, for reducing poverty, and for making this a better world. So my union, my national union, and the people that we represent who earn their living from the taxes, who are part of the 99%, are with you on this. Thank you very much.
All right, so our next speaker, our next speaker is Gil McGowan. He's from the Alberta Federation of Labour. He is a longtime political and labor movement activist with a committed track record of standing up for working people. He is currently the president of the Alberta Federation of Labour. The AFL is made up of 27 unions from both public and private sectors and represents nearly, 140,000 workers from across the province. Give it up for Gil.
Oh, that's cheating.
Hi. As the MC said, my name is Gil McGowan. I'm president of the Alberta Federation of Labour, and I'm here on behalf of our 29 unions in the public and private sector. But probably more importantly, I'm actually here because of this little guy. This is my son, and his name is Jack.
Hi, Jack.
And you know, I'm here because as a parent, I'm worried. I'm worried about the future for my son Jack, for his brother Ben and his sister Tessa, who are not here. But I'm also hopeful by what I see in front of me. I'm worried that we've lost our way in terms of policy. I'm worried that we've lost our way in terms of the economy. But I'm hopeful because I see people waking up in places like New York, in Washington, in Europe, and right here in places like Edmonton. Because people are realizing that we've gotten the calculus wrong, because for years we've been saying, how do we measure the success of an economy? And we know how people in the business pages measure it. We know how conservative politicians who support businesses measure it. They talk about investment, they talk about GDP growth, they talk about profits. But for me, the real measure of an economy's success is whether or not it's working for people.
Amen.
Yeah.
So can you find a job that provides dignity and security? Can you afford a home for your family? Can you afford to set aside a little money so you could enroll your kids in hockey or soccer? Can you afford to take them on a vacation? Can you afford to set a little money aside for a dignified retirement? And you know, by the business community standards, by their definition of economic success, things are going roaringly, especially in places like Alberta. Profits are up. The wealthy are taking an ever-increasing share of that growing pie. Investment is pouring into this province. But by the definition that really matters about whether the economy is working for people, then I'd say that we're failing and failing miserably. Because we see the housing prices in a place like Alberta, Calgary, Edmonton going through the roof, and that middle class dream, which is not too much to ask for, you know, that middle class dream of a comfortable life for yourself and your family, that's becoming ever more elusive. And I think that, you know, in a lot of ways, we become victims of a worldview. We become victims of a paradigm for thinking which has held sway in our capitals in the Western world for coming on 40 years now. It's a paradigm for thinking that was cooked up by economists like Milton Friedman and taken across the world by politicians like Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan, and closer to home, people like Ralph Klein. And it's a worldview and a paradigm that lionizes the business class and demonizes the public and the community. It's a paradigm for thinking that says all taxes by definition are bad and that the only way forward is the unfettered market. Well, you know, brothers and sisters, we've had 40 years of life under this paradigm. We've had 40 years of this conservative right-wing experiment. And you know what we're seeing? We're seeing that the experiment has been an abject failure.
Amen.
And so that's why the labor movement in places like New York, in places like Los Angeles, in places like Berlin and London, the labor movement is coming out in force to support demonstrations like the ones being organized today in Edmonton and in places like Calgary as well. The labor movement recognizes that the system that we live in is broken.
Right.
And I can't tell you how excited we are to see that other people from all walks of life are starting to come to the same realization that we've had for a number of years, that the system is broken and needs to be fixed.
Amen.
So that's the challenge that we face. And I'm so pleased that we're facing it collectively, because collective solutions really are the only solution to the problems that we face.
Amen.
But, you know, the challenge really that we face is one of facing what a famous economist, a Canadian economist named John Kenneth Galbraith, he talked about the conventional wisdom. You've all heard that phrase. And he said that the conventional wisdom is really not about wisdom, it's really about when thinking stops. And that's what's happened in Canada, the United States, and the rest of the Western world for the last 40 years. Thinking has stopped when it's come to how best to run our economy and our society. So these mantras about taxes, about the role of government, about the role of business, they haven't been questioned. And that's what's happening on the street today in Canada and across the world. People are starting to do what needs to be done to challenge the conventional wisdom and to take down those paradigms that have so failed us over the last number of years.
Amen.
And the way we do it is by questioning, by talking, by meeting, by offering alternatives. And then you know what you hear? You hear a rumble. And that rumble is paradigms falling. That rumble is the sound of worldviews crumbling. I just want to wrap up with a quote from a song that is near and dear to us in the labor movement. It's called Solidarity Forever. And at the end of the song, it says that we can bring a new world to life from the ashes of the old. And when I see groups like this, and I hear the things that are being said at microphones like this one, you know, here in Edmonton, across the country, that's what I hear. I hear the old world collapsing and a new one rising from the ashes of the old.
Solidarity! 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 That's right. That's why we're here today. I want to, this was our last speaker for the evening, so I want to thank all the speakers who have spoke. Ken Ward, Sandra, oh, I'm going to say her name wrong. Hazukar. Diana Gibson, David Egan, Michael, somebody help me with this. Kalanovich, Paula Kerman. We love you, Mike. Bob McEwen, and Elizabeth Ballerman, and Gil McGowan. Sorry, Gil McGowan. I'm doing terrible.
You're doing great.
We are going to open up the mic for anybody who wants to speak, but we want to be organized about it, okay? So we're only going to take about 5 or 7 speakers. We're going to ask that everybody try and keep it under 2 minutes.